Hello.
Good evening, good evening.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hi.
Good evening.
Good to see everybody. So my name's Adam Morehouse, and I'm sort of your host for the evening. Jeremy has been caught up with, I think, a family issue he's had to attend to. So, and Nate had some family business, like sports day or something that he was preoccupied with. So they've asked me if I would come in and host tonight's session and to introduce our guest speaker, Glenn Berry, which I'll do so in a moment. But I think I'll just wait till everybody's in the room. So let me know when everybody's here. How many are there normally?
Probably missing one or two right now.
Okay. Yeah, we're still 2 minutes to the hour, so
Yeah.
yeah. So chat amongst yourselves. And then I'll be I'm going to be introducing our guest speaker for tonight.
Hello. Who's got lollies? What are they?
I'll try not to say anything too incriminating, okay, Zach?
Oh no! Wait, I can pause the recording for you.
Yeah, that's what you said at Jupiter's. Thanks.
No, I said I'd start the recording.
Well, while we're here, maybe while we're just waiting, I haven't met you before, so I'll just introduce myself a little bit, and then maybe if we could go around the room, and if you could just each sort of give a brief intro for my sake and for Glenn's, that'd be great. So I'm Adam Morehouse. I do the marketing at Rose Training. So I've sort of been enjoying doing a bit of the editing of the guest speakers that you've had so far, and you'll see some of those on our Facebook page. And you've really had some wonderful speakers, haven't you? I mean, like really interesting work. So that's what I do. And I've been at Rose for, I think, about 7 years now. So longer than I care to admit, but there we are. So, yeah. So I don't know if I can see it in the top of my screen is Neil. You want to start?
Hi, I'm Neil. I'm a recovering alcoholic. It's been 15 minutes. No, I'm Neil. What is it? I recently got into chaplaincy because Nate Hammond had actually posted something here locally out in Eagleby, and I figured it would be a really good opportunity to at least, go down that route and go from there. I figure if anything, there might be a bit more job consistency with chaplaincy than currently what I'm doing. So yeah, just kind of playing it by ear and seeing what's happening.
Wonderful. Next is Kay.
Hi, my name is Kay, and I'm a PE teacher of 32 years, much longer than I'd like to admit. I'm also a celebrant on my weekends or sometimes afternoons. And just become a grandmother 2 days ago.
Oh, congrats!
Best job ever.
I have 4 daughters, and I've now got a granddaughter called Mary.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, 26 and a half hours of active labor and a home birth. So it was a big haul for us. So
Well
yeah,
done.
so it's good. She's a cutie. So it's a funny thing being a grandmother when they come out and they look exactly like your own kids. So
Congratulations.
thank you. So Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. All right. Sue Southgate.
Hello. So I'm an ex-RN, not an RN anymore. Not doing too much at the moment. Did do the Rose Celebrancy course. I've done some funerals, but no weddings. And my father was actually a prison chaplain at Long Bay back in the 70s.
Wow.
So I've sort of got a bit of empathy for the prisoners. Yeah, that's me.
Thank you, Sue. Louisa.
Yep, I'm Louisa, and I'm a celebrant as well, and just wanted to extend my skills and work in the school sort of area in pastoral care. So, and any chaplaincy, but, sort of expand my career a little bit into those areas. Yeah.
Wonderful. All right. And Hattis.
Hatties.
Hi,
Hatties.
I'm Hatties. I'm a celebrant as well. Became a celebrant through Rose training, and just recently that I was registered. I'm from
Congratulations.
Perth. Thank you. I'm from Perth, Western Australia. I've got 3 kids. They're pretty small, so they keep me busy a lot. I used to work at logistic department, like logistic areas. But I just want to change of career and also do this chaplaincy as well, and pastoral care, and sort of add more to this celebrant work, yeah. And surprisingly, I've got a few ceremonies booked already, so
Oh,
I'm
well
quite
done.
shocked with myself.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you, Hattis. Judy.
Hello, how are you? Sorry, I was a bit late, sorry.
Welcome, welcome. We're just going around the room, just doing a bit of an intro and just a brief intro for me, actually, for my benefit, and also for Glenn Berry, our guest speaker, who I'm going to introduce in a moment.
Sure. So I'm Judy. Hello, everyone. I am a senior data analyst for New South Wales Health. We're rolling out a new single digital patient record across all of New South Wales. It's a very big project. I'm also a marriage celebrant. I have done half a wedding with a colleague that I did face-to-face up in Sydney with Jeremy earlier this year. I did the legals and she did the rest. I've got my first proper marriage coming up in a couple of weeks. So I'm very excited about that.
Congratulations.
I was really interested in this course because I really love helping people and really and working in health as well. I really love that idea of being able to help people if I can. So
Great. Thanks, Judy. Zach, are we waiting for anyone else? Are we good to go?
We Catherine and Dandy, but I don't know if they will be on, so it might be best to kick things off.
Okay. All right. Well, look, I've been, as I said, I've been doing some of the editing of the guest speakers, and I've just been, it's been quite impressive, I have to say, listening to them. And also I've just thought, wow, you guys really are they're a special group of people to put their hand up, to be in those situations and to be there for people. And so I take my hat off to you as people who are wanting to step into that role and to be there for people in all the different sort of capacities that the chaplains fill. So yeah, I'm sort of happy I'm sort of honored actually to be here and be the host tonight. So with that, I'm going to, I've spoken to Glenn on the phone about an hour ago. So our next guest speaker is Glenn Berry. Glenn's background is that he's a prison chaplain. And he explained to me that actually he this is not his first career. This is his, I think maybe at least his second career. He was in the roofing industry, in the construction industry for 35 years, and had a sort of a change of heart, a watershed moment, and felt called to become a chaplain. And so with that, I'm going to turn the time over to you, Glenn, to talk about your experience as a prison chaplain.
Thanks, Adam. It's a real privilege to be here tonight. And yeah, it's been quite a journey for me. This is, as Adam said, I've been a chaplain in the prison for 8 years. Many experiences over that 8-year period. For me, 59 years old, and I was, I was 51 before I got the call to for the opportunity to move into prison chaplaincy. I really didn't know what to expect when I decided to take up the role. I went for an interview, and that was my first interview for like 30 years or something. And so it was all very confronting, opportunity, a change of career. Really didn't know what to expect, but I guess as a man of faith, I just stepped out and I walked into that space. And it was quite confronting to start with, because I'd never worked in a prison before. I'd never had the experience of even visiting anybody in prison, apart from one fella, one visit at Goulburn Jail, which was, is just supporting a friend of his, and that was about it for me. So when I got this position, and they said to me my role would be to be the chaplain at Berrima Jail, which was only a small jail. The jail was built in the early 1800s, about 1836, I think it was. And it's like, okay, so this is something that I'm going to be very challenged with. It was like, I didn't even know if I would fit into that position. But I did feel that, like I said, a man of faith, I did feel that I was called into that role. And it was going to be trial and error. And it was almost like thrown into the deep water, and you got to learn how to swim very fast. So I've been in, I worked out of Berrima Jail, and then Wollongong opened another jail. And so I was chaplain of 2 jails then. And so that was for a period of about 3 years. Those 2 jails closed, and then another division of the jail at Nowra opened up. And so fortunately enough, I got the full-time position to move to the Nowra jail. And it's such a roller coaster of emotion being in corrective services. So if any of you are considering that, it's like things can turn on a dime. And what you realise is that you're there for the inmates, you're there for the staff, and there's so many vulnerable situations that happen in a jail setting. You don't know from one week to the next what you're going to walk into. You could walk into the jail on a Monday morning, and you can actually, come across, there might be 3 deaths, not so much in the jail, but the inmate's family. And so you're dealing with a lot of grief, you're dealing with a lot of disappointment, you're dealing with emotions, and, there could be tension in the jail because there could have been lock-ins over the weekend. There could have been situations with drugs coming into the jail, visits not working out. So there's always tension. So you've got to come into that space with a very open mind, and you've got to be very resilient to whatever the circumstances may be. And the last thing that you want to be doing is, taking that home with you in the afternoon. So there's a lot of juggling around with your own emotions. I think that what you discover a lot more about yourself and what you can cope with and what you can't cope with. And supervision is a really important aspect to maintain, your self-care. You always need to be confiding in somebody that is neutral, that you can talk to about every situation that happens. It's and in saying that, it is a very privileged position to be in. So if anyone's thinking of prison chaplaincy, and I mean, there's many, I think there's like 26 different sectors that you can move into with chaplaincy, anywhere from hospital chaplaincy through to school chaplaincy. But prison chaplaincy it's a unique experience. It's not someone for the faint-hearted. You have to be thick-skinned. There's a lot of language that goes on in that environment, and that's just something you can't control. I've been fortunate enough for the last 5 years. I've been in an office with education staff, and so I get to do life with the education staff, and I hear all their stories and I hear all their conversations, and it's like you've got to be able to step out of, some of the conversations might not be too savoury, and so as a chaplain, you've got to be able to step in and out of different relationships and conversations and be okay with what you hear. And so it is, I think, like high school might even be similar when with some of the school kids and the experiences and the environments they come from. So I see these guys in jail, and I see them as they're victims. A lot of them are victims of circumstance that I don't think they were ever sort of created to go through criminal lives, come to jail, and that's how their lives turn out. I think it goes back to the socio-economics of a family, of history. There can be so many reasons why people go to jail, and I think all of us at some stage or other in our lives, that could have happened to us. But yeah, so it is definitely a unique experience. And I think if anyone's thinking of prison chaplaincy, you can go in as a assistant, a chaplaincy assistant. It's just a matter of getting clearance and everything else to go into a prison and come alongside another prison chaplain and get a bit of a feel for it to see if it's something that you feel that you would be able to cope with. There has been prison chaplains that they might only last 12 months to 2 years because it just becomes too much. And you've got to be able to, I guess, be prepared when there's a lot of uncertainty. So you could turn up and have a plan for the day, and then all of a sudden the jail's locked down for whatever reason, and that just throws all your plans. And so you've got to be able to be okay with when there's change in process of the jail. And but yeah, there's it's a unique position. It's a very vulnerable position to be in, like even for safety. You've got to wear a duress around. So if you feel like you're under pressure from any of the inmates, you've got to be prepared to be able to, either hit your duress and say, you know what, I need some support here, I need backup. The whole jail just stops when that happens, when you hit your duress. And that can be because an inmate's got a bad phone call and you're in an interview room with them, and all of a sudden you feel like you can become a victim to certain situations. And so it's a precarious sort of experience to have. being in that sort of predicament, but it can happen. And that's what you've got to be prepared to face in a jail setting. You know, like officers come in, they can be in a really bad mood. They can take it out on the inmates. They can take it out on non-custodial staff, and you've just got to be able to cope with that. But I've had some, if you'd like to hear a couple of good experiences, fortunately enough, and I don't know how many other chaplains do this, but I've really felt that having through care with the inmates, so post-release, when they get released, and you've worked with them for over a period of, some of them it could be 2 or 3 years, could be longer, it could be less, but when you have a rapport with them, it's just something that I like to do, is to stay in contact with them. And so that means that you have to fill out an inmate declaration form. You have to give that to the governor, and he has to approve that. And, you know, like probably 98% of the time they approve those forms that I submit, because they know that it's only about their spiritual and their emotional support that I want to, you know, be there for them on post-release. And I'm in contact with guys that have been out of jail for 3 to 5 years, and I've watched their progress. I've seen them get engaged. I've seen them establish businesses. They're not in the criminal world anymore. Some of them have chosen to go to church and have a faith, and you know, and receive the support that they need to be able to function in this world and to be able to move forward. So, you know, that's a real privilege as well. And I get a lot of satisfaction from that. So where you might have negative aspects of the jail, you also have a lot of positive aspects. The through care for me is definitely something that, as soon as I went into that role, I thought, I can't just work with these guys while they're in jail. I have to make sure that give them support, but also have very healthy boundaries around that. And, you know, like I'll give them my number, but I'll say, look, you send me a text message. If it's urgent, I'll contact you as soon as I possibly can. Other than that, I'll contact you within 24 hours. But I need to have very healthy boundaries around that. I don't go on any social media, because there's always guys that come out of jail, they're on social media, and I can't afford to do that. I can't put myself in that vulnerable state. I've got family and everything else. But if it's for emotional and spiritual support, I will give them that. And because I think, and it's not just me, there is other chaplains that do that. I don't know how many. There's 95 chaplains in the state of New South Wales for the prisons. But I know that there's a few of us that we do give that through care, support, and offer referrals to other organisations. Referrals are a big part of chaplaincy. I think that, you know, it's not just about your role in the present, working with these guys in the prison, but it's about, okay, who can I refer them to that's going to be able to come alongside them and support them and encourage them and help them to develop the skills that they need to survive, because a lot of them don't have high education, they don't have family support. They're lucky to have a roof when they come out of jail. They might get 2 days to a week of emergency housing. And, you know, I think it's $500 that they receive when they come out of jail. If they get released on a Friday, there's no banks open, there's no Centrelink open. So, you know, they just go back to their old behaviours. They find a drug dealer, you know, and they go straight back into that experience of criminal activity because they don't have the support. So for me, the through care is really important. And I've seen some really fantastic results, and that's what keeps me going. So if there's any other questions that you have, if I haven't covered a lot of the areas, please ask the questions. I'm more than happy to answer them.
Glenn. Oh,
Yeah, go
sorry.
Sue.
You said there was a very few times when they wouldn't approve you for through care. What are those? What is an example of when they wouldn't allow you to follow up with a prisoner when they were released?
Well, sometimes you work with outlaw motorcycle gangs, and because they've got their hands in so many different areas of society, it can create conflict between the chaplain's role and the post-release inmate. So you've got to be mindful of, like, this is not just somebody who's come out of jail, doesn't have family, but they're connected to a lot of criminal activity. So it can put you in such a vulnerable state with the law. And so there's got to be a lot of transparency when you're in that environment as a prison chaplain. You've always got to know that you've got to cover yourself. So anybody that I communicate with, we have what they call the management system, which is OIMS, the offender inmate manager system, and that has all your data. So they have all case notes on there of the inmate. So once they've got a MIN number, you put their MIN number into that management system, all their charges come up, all the interactions they have while they're in jail, while they're in community corrections. So if they've got parole to serve, police activity, all that is noted on this system. So the chaplains have a chaplaincy service line where it's really important that we put down all the details of any interactions, whether it's post-release or whether it's in the jail itself.
Thank you.
So hopefully I've answered that question for you.
Yeah, it's just curiosity. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that because it might put you in a compromised position?
That's
Glenn?
right. Yeah. So you've got to pick and choose who you're going to give post-release support to, because you don't want to cause any grief for your family, or you don't want to have the department on your case and next minute you're being investigated because you're involved with some drug lord, or there could have been a shooting. There's been shootings, so many shootings in New South Wales, and a lot of those guys come through the jail system, and if you've had any interaction with them, with phone calls or whatever, you're going to be investigated. You're going to be sitting in front of a judge. Yeah, it's a precarious place to be, and very difficult to navigate. You've got to have a lot of very healthy boundaries around those relationships.
Glenn, when you first went into the prisons, do you just wander in general population and talk to the inmates, or do they choose to come and see you, and you get your rapport that way? How do you get your interviews, and how do you find the inmates that you work with?
Louisa, so what happens is there's case managers, there's services and programs officers, and even custodial. And on that management system that I was telling you about, there's what they have is a service line or a referral line. And so there might be, say there's a death in custody, or sorry, there's a death in a family member, and they're going through grief and loss. And so whether it's a case manager or custodial staff or non-custodial, they'll put on a referral to the chaplaincy line, and they'll say, this inmate needs some support because he's had a family member lost over the last week. Or, they might have trauma, childhood trauma. They might have like adult trauma, PTSD. They might be going through, so many different aspects of life, the challenges of life, and they just want a chaplain to talk to. In saying that, I run programs in the jail, and the Salvation Army have a program. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's called the Positive Lifestyle Program, and that consists of 8 sessions. And so you can go through that program. If you do 1 session a week, that's 2 months that you have interaction with an individual inmate. I don't like to do group work. You can do PLP group work, but I like to do the individual work, which gives them an opportunity to share about all the difficulties that they're facing, all the difficulties they're facing with life in general, and past experiences where they may have experienced trauma, neglect, rejection, abandonment, drug abuse. And so doing the Positive Lifestyle Program also gives you an opportunity to really sit there and listen and help an inmate to move forward. And the program works through self-awareness to anger, loneliness, depression and loneliness, assertiveness, grief and loss, future direction, and self-esteem. So there's a lot of areas that you get to work with the inmates, and you might get a referral. Back to your question, Larissa, you might get a referral from case management saying this guy can't do programs, he can't do the high intensity program unit, which the department run. Can he do the positive lifestyle? So it's sort of like if the department doesn't have it, a program for these guys to do, chaplaincy has something that they can do. And as soon as they're prepared to do a program like positive lifestyle program, that goes on to their case notes. Parole officers see that, and the court sees that, the judge sees that, and that will give them credibility for parole, but maybe for early release. And I had a guy that I've been doing the program with, and he actually got 2 months off. So he's going to be released in the next few weeks. And that was because the programs he's doing, he's working, he's staying out of trouble. And I wrote him a reference and said, look, this is what he's actually doing now to better himself, to improve his relationship with his partner, his kids. And the judge just went, because you're doing all that extra work, I'm prepared to release you 2 months early. And, so it's really beneficial for these guys to be able to, not just sit around the yard, get in trouble, get involved in drugs, but be proactive. And that way they actually, they benefit from it. And yeah.
Are you there all day? Like, is there a specific time that you go there?
Yeah, well, because I live in Wollongong, I have to travel an hour and 10 minutes, hour and 15 minutes, which we've got a lot of new bypasses and things like that, which makes it easier. But yeah, most non-custodial staff get there about 8:30, and we've got to do 7 hours in the prison. So it can be a long day because, like you can be doing programs with 2 or 3 guys, or, like on average, it might be 2 guys a day. And then you run a group session where you might run a chaplaincy program. You might have another program that I'm about to start that I ran last year was a dad. Have you heard of Dads for Kids Foundation? Have you ever heard of that? So they have like a lot of fathering programs. And so I ran a program last year, 10 sessions. And so that's once a week for 10 weeks. And then, they're issued with a certificate after it, which the courts love to see these guys being proactive. And so, every day there's so much going on. it's not like you go in there and do a couple of hours and then you go home. You're in there for 7 hours, sometimes 8 hours, and there's, you don't even really have time to have lunch and that. The guys are locked in at lunchtime muster from about 11:45 to 12:30. And in that time, you're probably doing data entry. And after that, you're back out to the yard, calling guys up, having chapel services or programs running. And so, yeah, it's full on. It is full on. By the end of the week, you're exhausted. Let me say that.
Do you ever take services at the prison? I remember when my dad was at Long Bay, he used to go to Silverwater every Sunday to take services. And if the prisoners went to the service, they got an extra hour of visiting. So do you have to?
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
That was a long
Well,
time ago. Mm.
our jail has visits on Saturdays and Sundays. And because I'm involved with my own church in Wollongong, I'm there 5 days a week. So from Monday to Friday. And on a Thursday, I'll always put on a chapel service and invite whoever. Also, because with chaplaincy in the prison, you're there for all faiths. So you're there for non-religious, those who don't have a faith, and you're there for all the multi-faith. So on a Friday, I'll organise Friday prayers. I don't get in, because being a Christian, I don't get involved with Friday prayers. They have their own reader, but I will go and call them up. I'll open up the room, give them the access to the room. They'll have their prayer time, and they're all very respectful and grateful for what you do. And it's just about being there for everyone. So, as I said earlier, being there non-custodial, being there for inmates, and being there for all, correctional officers if they need to have a chat. It's a really privileged position to be in, but it can be very testing sometimes. So you've got to have that level of self-care. Like you can see my poster, I like to go out and have a surf once a week, play my guitar, spend time with my wife, my grandkids, my own family, as much as I can. And that has to be a priority, because it's so easy to get caught up in the jail environment. You've got to learn how, at the end of the day, you walk out, come out the gate, put your keys away, everything else, you've got to shut off, and you've got to, just get back to your normal lifestyle. And so, yeah, there's a lot of, I guess, management involved with the role.
Are you allowed to officiate at weddings and things like that?
Yes, are you talking about with post-release inmates, or are you talking about
weddings
the public
in jail?
in general? Yeah, public
Weddings
in general.
we're in jail. Yeah.
So our in jail, our governor doesn't sort of want to approve of marriages in prison. So he would prefer that they wait till they get out and do it properly with family and everything around.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
changed. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't hear of it very often where there's a marriage in prison now. But yeah, I've been involved with funeral, one of the inmates down at Nara who I spent a lot of time with, and he was only out for, I think, about 2 weeks, and he suicided. So that was a real heavy experience for me. My wife and I went along to the funeral, and I got to speak to family and friends. I was able to share about, the amazing changes he was making in his life and how he was excited about getting his life on track, which he was doing. But I think he got so overwhelmed with it that he, where there was ABOs, he wasn't to contact the particular person, and he did. And then he thought, I'm going back to jail. I don't want to go back to jail. And it was really sad because he was such a lovable guy, and he just reconnected with his 13-year-old daughter. Yeah, it was really difficult. So, you know, you can go through very difficult times. And even one of the guys I just spoke to yesterday, he's been out for 4 years. He's engaged. His partner's about to give birth to twin boys. I was at his mother's funeral. So, you know, you get to know these guys more of just like being in the prison, but post-release. But getting back to facilitating and being involved in marriages, it doesn't happen, not in our jail anyway. But I've had guys say to me they want to get married, and you know, and a lot of the time it's because they've been sentenced, they've got a big whack put on them, like they might have 8 years jail on them, and the partner's going, well, I can't be out here for 8 years waiting for you. We either get married or, and so then they get very anxious, the inmates, and they'll say, I've got to get married, and that it's not really for the right reasons. It's like they're just wanting to try and please the partner who's on the outside, knowing that they've got 8 years to do in prison. And that's happened a couple of times and then the governor's just said, no, I'm not prepared to do that. And that's the thing. You might think something's okay, but the governor of the jail, he might say, no, we're not doing that. So you've got to be prepared to accept that. So whatever the governor says, you've got to accept it, and you've got to be able to be okay with that and move forward.
Hey, Glenn, have you had anything negative actually spill into your personal life with working with prisoners or anything like that? Like you had a bad run-in or something like that, and you caught him, you know, when you're spending time with your family or anything like that? Or
I think probably the most difficult thing I've had is, and I don't know if you guys have done any study around vicarious trauma. No? Or transference. Have you heard of transference? Or yeah. So you can this is what you got to be very cautious of in an environment like that, and you're hearing very, very sensitive stories, and you're getting involved with these people, and it's like, as you know, with empathy, you've probably studied on empathy, but it's like you can join with somebody, but you've got to be careful not to put both shoes in their, you know, your feet in their shoes. Keep one foot out all the time, because what happens is, without you even realizing, you can have this transference and have this vicarious trauma where you take on their story and it becomes part of you. So this is something that you've got to be mindful of when you move into a chaplaincy role. And what happens, it happens so fast that you don't have time to think about it. And it can make you very sick. It can make you exhausted, because what you've done, you're carrying the burden of that person yourself. And that's something you've got to learn how to navigate, how to manage, where you don't step into their life. You're always at 1 foot out, so that you can walk away from that situation and feel okay. But as soon as you start to get into their life and you have that transference, it's like you can end up very sick and find it very difficult then to cope with your family life, the life working in the prison, and your health. So it's something, you know, like I've had a few situations where I've been told about, you know, there's drugs coming into the jail. And once that's been revealed to me, then I'm obligated to share that with the governor. And so that can put you in a very vulnerable state where you're looking, has somebody heard this conversation? Is this a setup? Whatever. So yeah, there's a lot of challenges. And that's just a couple of things that I can think of. So vicarious trauma, which when you study that, you'll understand it more. And I guess that being very cautious about self-care and how much you allow yourself to get involved in people's stories. You know, we're present as chaplains, we're present in that experience, but it's not our burden to carry it. Our burden, you know, we don't need to carry that burden. Our role is to be there present, listen attentively, reflect back, but not take on the burden that person is speaking about. So Neil, also with that, I'll just say that you mentioned about family. So that's another, so you've got to be very, very cautious about who you allow into your life. And like I said earlier, social media and all that sort of thing, you don't go there, because what it does, it just opens up an opportunity for post-release inmates to then connect with your family members. So it's really important to have that safety aspect where you just got to be so cautious about how you navigate your relationships post-release, because it can create multiple problems. You get someone with mental health problems and they're ringing your phone every 20 minutes because they're going through a difficult time. You've got to have very strict guidelines around that. And it's important to get to know the inmate when they're in prison. So when they get out, you know what they're capable of. You know whether that's a person that you're willing to give your number to. Fortunately, you know, like over the last 8 years, I haven't had any issues, but that's just not to say that it could happen. And then you've got to be able to make sure that through assertiveness, you've got to be able to say, don't call me at this time, only call me on my work days. I'm traveling down the coast, gives you time to call me in the morning or in the afternoon, leave a message, I'll get back to you. But you've got to make sure that you've got your family life, and that, you know, there's a safety net with that you're not allowing the jail or the inmates to control your life. You've got to have that breakaway from that.
Right.
One more question. Yeah. One more question, and I've got to go and have my dinner.
Anyone else got a question for Glenn?
This was the most interesting one. Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you. No, it's been a pleasure, and I really appreciate it. And it is, you know, it is a wonderful role to be in. And I think you've really got to sit with yourself. If you've got a faith, then yeah, pray about it. Talk to other people. Get involved with other prison chaplains. Prison chaplaincy, prison fellowship. Have you heard of prison fellowship? Yeah. So they're great to get alongside them and become a volunteer. And you might volunteer and think, oh, this is fantastic. I think I might see, you know, if there's any subsidies available for chaplains. You get with an RMO, which is recommended member organisation, which could be a church. It could be, you know, like I'm employed by Chaplaincy Australia, and I think we've got 5 prison chaplains or 6 prison chaplains across the state. We had one at Long Bay. So yeah, and Mr. Ring, he was there. Gary Ring, he was there for 20 years. So he possibly knew your dad. Yes, so it is, you know, there's avenues and there's opportunity. So, but yeah, thanks very much for the opportunity to share with you guys tonight. And hopefully you've got something from all that.
Glenn, thank you so much for being so generous and sharing your time and your experience with us. It's much appreciated. Speaking from on behalf of Bros, I'll leave it for
Yeah.
the sisters to say
Yeah.
that. Yeah, but we
Cheers. Thank you, Glenn.
No worries, Neil. Yeah, I'm just so grateful that you guys wanted to hear from a prison chaplain, and it's a very different role. It's not for everybody, but you'll know yourself if you feel like you're being called into that position. There is opportunity. You've just got to chase that opportunity, and like I said, if that's your calling, you'll know.
Glenn, there's a program, is it called Kairos?
Yeah, Kairos. Yeah.
Is that a
Yeah.
good place to start, do you think, maybe?
Yeah, you can get involved with Kairos. Not all jails will receive Kairos because it's a five-day program, and it means that it takes inmates away from all their programs. The volunteers from Kairos, they've got sort of a lot of time with the inmates, and yeah, so some governors will accept it. We're hoping to have Kairos come in April, but it's taken a lot of years to orchestrate all that.
Yeah.
And so that's possibly going to happen early next year for us at NARA.
Okay, good.
So Kairos, Prison Fellowship, all those organisations, yeah, they're the ones to follow up if you feel that's the direction that you've been called to.
All right, thank you. Thanks.
All right, Glenn, well, we won't hold you from your dinner any longer. Thanks so much, mate.
Yeah, not a problem. Thank you.
Yeah, have a good night.
Thank you.